In my hands I hold a relic from a simpler time. Let us open the box. Praise the Emperor! It's beautiful.
Right then, enough of that grimdark idiot, and let's show you what's arrived, because what has arrived is monumental. Something I've always wanted. Original Mk1 Land Raiders. Only one will be staying with me, one will be going to a friend, and we will be selling the other one. Now let's have a look at these venerable war machines in the flesh. And here we have it. 3 Mk1 Land Raiders. In pretty good shape. They're missing some of the storm bolters, but you can see for yourself. Not crazy caked in paint. We have sponsons. Let's get these on to the turntable, have a look at them, go over some of the history of these models from Rogue Trader up into 2nd edition, and then we're going to paint one and we're going to send the other 2 off. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and occasionally a tank shaped like a brick that decided physics was optional. Today we're looking at the 1988 Mk1 Land Raider, the original rolling cathedral of violence from early Warhammer 40k, from Rogue Trader, the vehicle that said, what if a bunker developed legs? To understand the Mk1 Land Raider, we must travel back to 1988, the era of Warhammer 40k, Rogue Trader. Warhammer wasn't yet the hyper-serious gothic opera that we know of today. It was part sci-fi parody, part heavy metal album cover, and part someone definitely stayed up too late reading Dune and reading Judge Dredd comics. The rules were loose, lore was experimental at best, and Games Workshop clearly believed that subtlety was for cowards. Enter the Mk1 Land Raider, designed by the legendary techno-archaeologist Arkenland, who discovered its SDC blueprint. Which raises an important question. If your last name is Land, and you invent a vehicle for travelling on land, did you name it after yourself, or did history simply refuse to stop you? I'm going to ask you to do something now. Look at it, and I mean really look at it. The Mk1 Land Raider resembles the World War I tank, a mobile apartment block, and something a child builds when told, more guns. It has tracks wrapping around the entire hull, and it has zero interest in aerodynamics. Not that it needs it, because it will kill you when it gets there. I'd imagine in modern design meetings engineers ask, is it efficient? In 1988, Games Workshop asked, can it survive being shot by literally anything? The Mk1 Land Raider carried devastating weapons for its time, and it still is devastating. Twin las cannons, a heavy bolter, and space marines, or Terminators inside, because sometimes the best option and the best weapon is more space marines. It wasn't just a tank, it was a moving argument against enemy optimism. Imagine being an enemy commander. You prepare ambush positions, you calculate firing lines, and the steel cathedral rolls over the horizon like a confident refrigerator. Morale declines immediately. And the model itself? Magnificent. A chunky brick of plastic assembled as hope, glue, and some mild emotional distress. Hobbyists of the era report 2 guaranteed outcomes. You will love it instantly, and you will want another. Early Warhammer models didn't aim for realism, they aimed for presence. You didn't place the Land Raider on the table, you declared it. The Mk1 perfectly represents early 40k tone. Back then, the Imperium felt less like a tragic dystopia and more like a bureaucracy that discovered tanks and never emotionally recovered. There was humour, absurdity. Space Marines occasionally behaved like heavily armed action heroes rather than the monastic warrior philosophers that we see now. The universe hadn't yet realised how miserable it intended to become. The later Land Raiders became sleeker, more gothic, more refined, but the Mk1 remains special because it feels invented, not engineered. Modern designs do look ancient. The Mk1 looks enthusiastic, like humanity rediscovered technology immediately said, yes, what if it had more guns? Collectors adore the Mk1 Land Raider for 3 reasons: nostalgia, charm, and the undeniable power of rectangular confidence. It represents a time when Warhammer was still experimenting with its identity, before the endless lore timelines, before galaxy-ending stakes, before everyone started whispering dramatically about heresy every 5 minutes. The Mk1 reminds us that Grimdark once had a mischievous grin, and I love that. There's something wonderfully human about early Warhammer design. can almost hear the creators saying, "We don't know exactly what the universe is yet, but it absolutely needs a massive tank." And honestly, they were correct. Civilization itself is arguably just a long process of leaning towards building cooler tanks. The 1988 Mk1 Land Raider isn't just a vehicle. It's a fossil from a younger Warhammer 40,000, a reminder that even in the grim darkness of the far future, there was once room for experimentation, humour, and extremely square engineering decisions. Because sometimes the Emperor protects, and sometimes he deploys a brick with guns. I really look forward to doing the restoration on this model and getting it on the tabletop for my Crimson Fist. And hopefully you'll join me for that journey. But until then, I'll leave you with the old data card from 2nd edition. I am the Ginger Paintbrush. These have been the Mk1 Land Raiders, and I will see you on the next one.